Not long ago, the world believed Africa couldn't control its own wealth. But one country has just proven that wrong: Burkina Faso. And the man behind this change is Captain Ibrahim Traoré. This isn't just the story of a leader, it's the story of economic freedom. A young soldier who traded his gun for strategy and showed that with honest leadership and clear vision, even poverty can turn into prosperity. When Traoré came to power in 2022, Burkina Faso was struggling. The country was rich in gold, yet most people remained poor. The mines were owned by foreign companies, and while gold left the ground, little benefit stayed behind. In 2022, Captain Ibrahim Traoré took charge of Burkina Faso and decided to change how his country used its gold. For years, foreign companies controlled the mines and took most of the profits, while local people stayed poor. Traoré believed this had to stop. He created a new law that gave the government control and ownership of the mines so the money would stay in the country. Many said it was too risky, but he didn't listen. He said real independence means using your own resources for your own people. Within a year, Burkina Faso took back 5 foreign-run gold mines and started earning billions in revenue. For the first time, citizens saw their gold helping build their nation, and people began to feel proud again. After taking control of the mines, Captain Traoré focused on how to use the gold money to build the country. Between 2022 and 2025, Burkina Faso earned about 18 billion in gold revenue, not from loans or aid, but from ownership. Instead of sending profits overseas, the government used the money to invest in new industries, build factories, and create jobs. One of the biggest projects was the country's first national gold refinery, which can process hundreds of kilograms of gold each day. This means the gold is now refined and valued inside Burkina Faso, not in Europe. The government also used the gold income to fund solar power plants, improve farming, and start small factories to make local products like rice and tomato paste. For the first time, development was paid for by the country's own resources, not by foreign debt. As Burkina Faso's gold revenue grew, the country began to inspire others across Africa. Neighboring nations like Mali and Niger started changing their mining laws too, giving their governments more control over natural resources. Together, they formed the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, a group focused on cooperation, not dependency. These countries agreed to manage their gold, uranium, and other resources for their own people instead of foreign corporations. This new alliance also started working on shared projects in energy, trade, and transportation. For the first time, African countries in the Sahel were uniting around the idea of self-reliance. Western nations and investors were worried, but for people in the region, it was a moment of hope, proof that Africa could stand on its own. With more control over its resources, Burkina Faso began to focus on long-term growth. Captain Traoré understood that simply owning gold wasn't enough. The country needed to use it to build industries and jobs. He invested part of the gold revenue into manufacturing and energy so that Burkina Faso could produce more at home instead of importing everything. New factories started turning local crops like rice, cotton, and tomatoes into finished products, creating jobs for young people. Solar and hydroelectric plants were built to power these industries in villages across the country. Traoré often said that a nation begging for electricity will end up begging for everything else. His goal was clear: make Burkina Faso strong, self-sufficient, and proud by turning its natural wealth into real development. As Burkina Faso grew stronger, Captain Traoré faced pressure from Western countries and global institutions. Some warned that his policies would scare investors or isolate the nation, but he believed independence was worth the risk. He refused to take loans from the IMF or World Bank and proved that a country could build progress with its own money. This success challenged the global system that kept many African nations dependent on debt. Western media often criticized him, calling his leadership military populism, but many Africans saw him as a symbol of dignity and courage. For them, Traoré showed that true power comes from ownership, not from waiting for aid. His message spread across the continent. Africa doesn't need to beg for help. It just needs to trust its own strength. Today, Burkina Faso is seen as a new example of what African nations can achieve when they believe in themselves. The country now refines its own gold, builds its own factories, and funds its own development. People who once worked just to survive are now part of a growing, confident economy. The success of Captain Traoré's model is changing how Africa sees itself, not as a supplier of raw materials, but as a creator of value. His leadership reminds the world that true independence is not just about politics, it's about economic control and self-respect. Burkina Faso's story has become more than a national achievement. It's a message to the world that when a nation stops asking for permission to grow, it discovers its real power.